We're live now. Bam. I'm live with the David Johnson. Isn't it
Going
fun
live
that
is
your
good.
last name is Johnson?
What's fun about that? Are you making
Well,
fun of me?
I'm just
Just
saying,
joking.
Johnson is a fun, happy last name.
Well,
I
I have,
wish
a
my
very,
last name was
I have
Johnson.
a very generic name, which I think on many fronts could be good. Oh, there's your rubber chicken. Are we gonna make $1 million?
10 million.
I could do that too. Let's do it. I'm in.
I think you're better at making money than me.
Well, it hasn't always been the case. That has not always been the case. Let me tell you.
Well, you're going to tell me, but you're going to
Yeah.
tell me. I have exactly an hour with you today because we set a very strict deadline because you're a very busy businessman, which just basically means that going to have to try to get a lot of information out of you in a short amount of time.
Well, I'll try to do my end of the bargain and talk for an hour. I've never done that before, so we'll see if I can do it.
Really?
I've listened, but I've never really talked for an hour.
You've never had a conversation for an hour?
No, I guess I have. You're right. Not in like a formal setting like this.
Is this formal?
I've never
Welcome
really been...
to my living room.
I like that, by the way. It's a cool setup.
Me too. I love it here. I like your setup as well.
Thanks. This is my home office, brought to you by last year's COVID necessity.
Where did you get those signs at?
It's a phenomenal company. I believe they're called Iconic, and they have a bunch of different collections. This is obviously their Monopoly collection, and they're awesome. They're not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's definitely worth the spend, and an eye piece, and I like them.
So, may I ask how much those cost?
I think each one was like $150, maybe 160, 180, something
Oh
like
my
that.
goodness gracious. Yeah, no, I would pass on it. I love it, but I don't have expendable income at the moment. You know that sign that says unlimited cash flow behind you?
Let's do that.
Yeah, so I said I think you're a better business person than I am because one of the things you're great at is creating cash flow. And I'm jumping around just a little tiny bit because you said I have no idea what we're talking about today, which makes me giddy, by the way, because this could go anywhere.
It might.
I have so many things that I want to talk to you about today, David. Cash flow, though, it hasn't always been that way. Take me back to the beginning because you were in the Army.
I was Army from 2000 to 2006. So kind of at the peak of, well, not the peak, I shouldn't say that. At the start of the Iraq War, our unit was pretty much the first ones in, early 03, February of 03. And then just did a couple rotations, just like everybody else, multiple deployments. But yes, ended up getting out of the military in 2006 with no clue what I wanted to do. And I've always said, getting out of the military in 2006, I think it's a lot different than getting out in, 2010, 11, 12, 13. I think they got, let's call it better in the transition process, maybe more resources, more classes. I'm kind of just guessing this. But in 2006, it was kind of like, hey, pat on the butt. Thanks for playing. Here's your paperwork. Have a good day. And there wasn't a lot of resources or as much resources as there is today. That's just talking to people. That's what I kind of gather. So, but yeah, my military time, I've been out, almost 3 times as long as I've been in almost. So as clear as the memories are, as strong as the bonds are, I'm fortunate to have found my what's next after the military, which happened to be entrepreneurship. And that's how where I gravitated. But so that's it. That's the transition story in a nutshell.
I have 2 questions. One of the most important questions to me is why did you join the military at the beginning of a war?
So I actually joined I joined August 8th of 2000. So that was before 9/11.
Okay.
So there was no war going on. Long story less long. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. So I speak, read, write Arabic. So I joined the military under their language program. That was kind of I don't know. It was a cool path. I'm 18. I have no clue what I want to do. If I would have went to college, I probably would have failed out the first day. So I just wasn't ready for that. Mindset, academic, grades wise, anything. So come from a long line of military. My father, both grandfathers, everything. So it kind of just made sense. My parents never pushed it, but it was always like, hey, maybe you should just think about this. So my father and I went down to talk to the recruiting station, the recruiter one day, and I was like, "Yep, gonna join the military. That sounds cool." So that was why I joined. But yeah, pre 9/11.
So it's interesting because entrepreneurship versus being in the military, those are very different constructs. One is very rigid, very, there's levels of hierarchy, whereas entrepreneurship it's an amazing path for the creative person that's also good with money. Did you know you were an entrepreneur when you were in the military? How did you deal and handle that kind of discipline and like that box? Because that's a box.
Well, and this is a whole podcast in and of itself, but the unit I was in the military and what we did in the military, I was not in a conventional unit. I was in a special operations unit, and what we did was a whole lot different. Very small unit tactics, small teams, and I'll leave it at that. So it was very actually what I did in the military is kind of, now that I think back, very entrepreneurial minded. But when I got out, I did not know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I got out in 2006. You have the GI Bill, the college benefits. So I went to Arizona State University. And while I was going to ASU, I thought I was going to get into the medical field. Like I shadowed a dentist once. I thought I was going to be a dentist. I thought I worked a little bit to get as a pharmacy technician back in like 2008. So I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. So I was going down that medical path, and it never always sat right with me. I always kind of gravitated to running your own business, but I didn't have the skill set, number one. I didn't have an idea, number two. And a lot of people think they all want to be an entrepreneur, but that maybe they don't have an idea. We touch on that later. But long story less long, I met this guy by the name of Robert Stevens my senior year of ASU. And he was a big time entrepreneur, and he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me. And that was my first step into the entrepreneurial world.
How did you meet him?
Just mutual introductions.
Were you at a party or were you in class?
No, it was a friend of mine's father who made the introduction. And come to think about, I don't even know why they made that introduction, because I'm some 24, 25-year-old kid going to ASU, and he's some late 50s entrepreneur. So
okay.
I that's a funny question. I don't know how or why I know how, but I don't know why that introduction was made. But that introduction changed my life. I mean, I was going down this path, then I met Bob Stevens, and let's go this way.
So you had a mentor that was basically put in your path.
I did. And then I basically followed him for a year because he had a business venture he was trying to get off the ground. And it was a very grand scale business. This was not like, let me open up a corner pizza shop. This was a very large, massive, that if it took off, it was going to be $1 billion. So my first, and you know what, I've never thought about this. I'm just kind of like, yeah, you're like a therapist pulling this out of me. So my first entrance into entrepreneurship was, hey, we're going to go build this $1 billion company. And I'm some 25-year-old kid. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go do it. Not knowing anything about anything. So I followed him for like 2 years. Even after I graduated, I was with him. He came to my ASU graduation, I remember. And then I had an idea for a company. So I kind of saw his venture was just stagnant. He never got it off the ground. God bless him, smart guy, but it's hard. And then I had an idea that came to me in 2009, maybe-ish. So then I kind of left Bob and his crew to kind of start my own. And that was my first venture personally into entrepreneurship.
And you actually went into the tech industry, correct?
I did. It was a tech startup back in 2009. That was the buzzword, tech, online, all that kind of crap. And that opened my eyes. Number one, I had no business doing it. I had no clue what it took to get a, software development online venture off the ground. And I had this grandiose idea. Yeah, we're going to go public one day and do all that. Oh, shit. I had no clue what I was doing. But,
I've been there. Yeah. I've been there myself.
Well,
I have.
But sometimes that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And I jumped in at the peak of the company. We had 12 full-time employees. Our head of software engineering was a PhD computer scientist. We had an office in Silicon Valley. Ultimately, we moved everything to Phoenix. We relocated people to Phoenix. We won many battles, but lost the war. And I shut the company down in September of 2012-ish.
So there's a lot in that little bit that you just said.
Sure.
So I was looking at the clock because now I'm watching the time. I told you when it's really easy to get carried away
It
when
goes by.
you're talking. Oh my gosh. So
Trust me, I know.
one of the things that you said is that you built your team up to almost 20 employees and
12.
Okay. And one of those people had a PhD.
Right.
How did you network to find the right people? And how did you get them interested when you couldn't pay him PhD salary?
So equity, number one. I mean, there's ways to structure startups with equity, founder shares, vesting. That's a whole other conversation. But we had a good idea. The idea was solid-ish. I mean, I look back now and I look back now and sometimes ask myself, like, would the idea have actually worked? We can get into what the idea is later. But I think back now, and that's a whole other conversation of how ideas work. But I've always kind of been good at networking, and I hustled. I got out there. I met everybody I could. The idea was decent. I did attract a qualified founding team from a software engineer standpoint. So people look at that like, hey, who's on your team? Are these qualified people, or are these a bunch of, So, and it was 2.5 years of my life full time. And, the first 8-9 months struggle. Oh, there you go. I forgot about this. So one of my best friends, his name is Mario. I met him at ASU. Mario has an uncle named Rudy. Rudy's good friend, he passed away now. His name was Jim Flash. Jim Flash was a venture capitalist and one of the first investors in Facebook.
Okay.
So I was playing pool at Rudy's house one day, Mario's uncle, my friend. And Rudy said, hey, David, what are you up to these days? I said, I got this tech startup. He's like, you need to talk to this guy. And he pulls out his phone and he calls Jim right on the spot, the venture capitalist. And I had no idea who Jim was. And that was the catalyst to how it kind of bumped up to the next level. And then Jim actually invested some money.
What was your elevator pitch? What did you say to him to get him interested in what you're doing? Because he's got a lot of people that want him to give them his money. How did you get him in line? What did you say?
I said, I'm creating a social network with proprietary algorithms for the military and veteran community. We were the first ever social network for the military community back in 2009. And we built custom algorithms that looked at people's different data points and then connected people, kind of like a LinkedIn meets Facebook for the military. Other people are doing it now. We were the first to market, which is not always a good thing. But anyways, in short, that's what it was. And he was former military in addition to, he's a tech venture capitalist. So we got the tech side. And so, yeah, he got it.
It's interesting to me because at the beginning of this podcast, you said that you left the military a long time ago, and yet you never really left the military. It is still entwined in everything you're doing still to this day, even after the tech company.
So, yeah. Well, I took a break, and you never really leave-ish, in my opinion. But yes, the tech company. So I got out of the military, and I was still all military. I was fighting and still shooting and doing all the, the military stuff. And then just because I was so military, I had this idea for the tech company. But when the tech company failed, I pivoted in a whole new direction and basically did no military anything from 2012 till about a year ago.
Got it. What was the catalyst to bring you back on board as far as the military again? Because you have a podcast, the David Johnson Show, which is military and veteran based.
Correct.
What brought you back to it again?
So, yeah, after I took a hiatus or a vacation from pretty much anything military, I've always been passionate about it. I've always mentored veterans here in Phoenix. And last year, March, decided to do this military-related podcast. It just started as let's just have some fun. It was just going to be a pure passion project, and it has rapidly turned into a full-time job.
And the full-time job, so on the money side, you said, we could have a whole podcast about ways to raise money, etc. I would love it if you would start a business podcast where it's specifically talking about those aspects, or maybe I could start a podcast like that. So far, my podcast is really open. I really love listening to Joe Rogan, and I love that all of his guests are different and that the conversations just kind of flow versus, you know, like what talking points are we going to have today? For me, wanting to talk to you specifically interested in your journey as an entrepreneur, and also the idea that entrepreneurship is an identity and not a choice. What do you think about that?
It is a certain identity, and I think you do have to have a personality and a risk tolerance. I think there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and maybe having the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like you could work for a large company and be a go-getter and think outside the box and be creative and all that bullshit. But that's different than being an actual entrepreneur. If I were to spitball a definition of entrepreneurship, it's, you know, you rely on yourself, and maybe a small team that you probably put together for your income. Like if I don't sell my product or service, guess what? I might not have dinner tonight. And I lived that life from 2012 to 2015 while having a newborn son. And, but at that point, to your point, entrepreneurship was my identity, and I couldn't just leave. And a lot of people, well, David, just go get a job. Number one, I don't even know what I would have done. But two, it was my identity, and I'm an entrepreneur, and so I just pivoted to a new industry, and well, the rest is history.
So you know that I've been exploring the idea of getting a job.
Correct.
And
nothing wrong with that, by the way. I don't think it's down.
Gosh.
I'm not saying that's bad.
Well, you have no idea how much anxiety it feels for me, because I've been an entrepreneur my entire professional career. I mean, it really has been that way. Like people assume that I am great at photography because I'm passionate about photography, and you know that's been my dream. I honestly didn't know anything about photography. I didn't have a camera until I decided I was going to go into business for myself.
So did you have did you have a background in photography? You said you didn't?
No. I was going to college as a psych major. I wanted to help people because I came from a really troubled childhood and was a teenage runaway, and, you know, didn't graduate from high school, that kind of thing, because I was living on the streets and I couldn't go to school, had warrants out for my arrest, that kind of thing. And I was going to, after, you know, that tumultuous time in my life, I got my GED, I enrolled in community college, thought that I would go down that path as far as helping people that came from places like me. But I was going into debt. I was going into debt to go to college. And as I was researching the career of psychology, I was like, this is going to be really miserable because people are going to be complaining all of the time instead of being proactive about finding solutions that work in the real world.
So, okay, go on. I have a question for you, but go on. Sorry.
Okay. So I was going to school, going into debt. I was waiting tables and I was miserable. And I remember kind of the turning point for me is there was a night that all of these rich people would come in during bar rush, and they'd be drunk and like sloppy. And one guy had pulled out his penis and started peeing all over a table because he was that plastered. And I was thinking, look at these professionals that are supposed to be polished, you know, and they have their shit together. And when they get off work at night, they have to get so fucked up that they don't even know where they're at. And I'm over here cleaning up their pee.
And that's,
so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go into business for myself. And then I would lay in bed at night thinking of what I could create that people would want to buy. And that's how my journey started into entrepreneurship.
See, I'm the opposite. I had an idea that just hit me, and I said, I have to go pursue this idea. Whereas you said, I have this personality potential. I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what I'm going to do yet.
Yeah, it was really like that. And then,
so what made you get into photography then?
So I got a little camera and I started taking pictures, and I'm not one of those people that allows myself hobbies. Like if it's not money making, I shouldn't be doing it. That's just the way that I am inside. There's that drive. And so I started taking pictures. Somebody really loved my pictures, and somebody else commented, oh, you should start a photography business. And that kind of put the idea into my head. And then I won a photo contest. My daughter's picture, I took a picture of her, and it won the New York's 5 minutes of fame. So basically my picture was like on the big astro vision thing in New York.
Oh, wow.
It made that thing. And so then I decided I'm an amazing photographer. And I just decided that I was good at it. But I would get online and I would search and search and search for photographers that are great and talented. And then eventually I found somebody that taught an online course, and it was like $2,000, which was a lot of money for me back then. And
Sure.
I paid for the class and started learning the business, and
Wow.
the rest is history.
I love stories like that. That's super cool.
Your story is way more interesting than mine, growing up in Saudi Arabia.
Well, you know, my father was working over there, so I didn't really have a choice to be born over there, obviously. But no, I had a great upbringing. I mean, as far as childhood is concerned, I mean,
Supportive parents.
Oh yeah, very blessed on that front. So yeah, I can't complain on that. I mean, I think that helps, obviously, to a certain extent.
Because you have a net. You basically, like you have a net of supportive people that will catch you if you fall, correct?
They've always supported me. Yeah, they've always supported me and standing behind me, and my biggest cheerleaders. So that's been definitely helpful.
And I think for me, I haven't really had that net. I really have lived a life where it's dog eat dog, and it's really been, I've seen a lot of ruthless, scandalous stuff. So a lot of my entrepreneurship is just not wanting to be stuck or caught or trapped or victimized, period.
Right. Yeah. And I get that. I mean, I shut my tech company down, like I said, September of 12. My son was born May of 2013. I've told the story numerous times, and no exaggeration. I was driving to the hospital with negative $10 to my name, literally. 13, 14, and most of 15 was truly, where am I going to get dinner tonight? I got into the healthcare sector after the tech sector, but it took a while to build it up. And I opened up my own firm on the healthcare side in 2015, and then started bringing on clients. And then 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, into 20, dead focused on my healthcare. I go into companies and I structure their benefits. It's employee benefits. It's not sexy, but it's a good business. So you go to a company, okay, you have 100 employees, this many female, this many male. You could see, claim data, what employees have, what health conditions, and you have to structure the healthcare for the company. And it's a very boring topic, so I won't say anything more on it, except
it's not boring.
No,
I was into it.
Healthcare and employee benefits, but it's statistically speaking one of the top 3 most expensive line items for a company. I mean, companies have expenses, right? Number 1 is usually payroll. That's very expensive. Some other stuff, and usually within the top 3 or 4 is healthcare. And I got to go look a CEO in his eye and say, and healthcare inflation is raising at the rate year after year, twice the rate of regular inflation. So I got to go look a CEO in the eye and say, look, you're spending $500,000 a year in healthcare. I'm going to try to get that down to 400 or 450. And here's how, and here's blah, blah. Listen, you don't want to talk about that. So
no, that's brilliant.
So, and there's a lot you got to know, and it's a big financial equation at the end of the day, combined with a lot of healthcare stuff. And I started with 0 clients and worked my way up to, at my peak, 52 clients. Took a massive hit during COVID, lost 37% of my revenue overnight. But you talk about, how am I doing this here? Unlimited cash flow. I learned the power of recurring revenue when I got my first check from my first client. I mean, I don't get paid from the client. I get paid by the carriers, but different story. But I got my first check and I was like, this is cool. Then I woke up next month and got that same check, because it's a 12-month contract with clients. So every month you get a check for 12 months, recurring revenue. And I'm like, now this is powerful.
That sounds like magic. It sounds almost like investing.
Because if you do it properly and you set systems in place, month 2, 3, 4, you're getting the same check, but you're not working as hard.
I love that. How did you put that in place?
Well, and I was going to answer that before when I said but. So everybody has this idea of passive income. Listen. None of that shit's easy. It took me 3-4 years to put it in place. And I have a proper business. I have a This is not some, oh, I'm going to sell these courses online, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I mean, that stuff's viable. I mean, I've bought courses online, but it's not as easy as people think. I mean, we have a real company that has a real product, a real service, real customers. And I think a lot of people fail to accurately identify what your real product or service is and who's your real customer. And then how are you going to go get them and bridge that gap? And a lot of things in entrepreneurship, there's a gray area. Okay. My favorite color is gray, but a lot of things are black and white too. Like, okay, I have a product or service. We've been out in the market for 6 months. Okay. Was anybody buying it? I uploaded a video to YouTube last month. Well, is anybody watching it? I mean, that's pretty black and white stuff. I got payroll on Friday. I either have the money to make it or I don't. It's pretty black and white.
Is it though? Is it really black and white? Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Something.
Because yeah. On YouTube, okay, well, you posted a video. Is anybody watching it? It's not necessarily that the content isn't good. Learning YouTube is a business in itself.
Right, but my point is, and you're right, totally. And trust me, I've had a real world lesson in YouTube the past year. I could talk on that for an hour. But yeah. At the end of the day, and there's things you could do to switch. I'm not saying you're dead if the answer is no, but at the end of the day, you got to have a come to Jesus meeting and be like, okay, and forget YouTube, just anything. I have a product or service. I've been out in the marketplace selling this for 6 months. Am I making sales? That's a black and white question. And if the answer is yes, there's a million things you can do. And if the answer is no, there's a million things you can do. But at the end of the day, that's a very black and white answer, in my opinion. And if the answer is no, okay, why? Does our communication suck? Do our customers not know what we actually do? Are our customers finding us? Is it just a price point issue? There's a million things you can adjust. And 9 times out of 10, every entrepreneur adjusts until they find the way. You never hit it out of the park day one. But anyways, I'm off on a tangent now, probably.
I love tangents. They're my favorite. There are a lot of pieces to running a business, a lot of pieces.
Right.
And that going hungry part, I can relate to that. I mean, I've had a period in my business where I literally was sleeping in my commercial space in a mattress in one of the extra rooms because that's what it took to keep the business going.
Well, it's a race against time and money to a certain extent. I mean, unless you're just independently wealthy, which I was not when I started this at all by any means. I was dead broke. You only have a certain amount of time. I mean, time and money. You can't go forever. And if you're not generating money, there's only a few ways you can survive. You can try to borrow it or raise it. But if you can't do that, you have to go generate it through sales. And if you can't do that, guess what?
I can relate.
There's not a lot of options, there's not a lot of options. Trust me. It's so that's what I mean by there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of let's get creative and figure it out. But at the end of the day, you're either making sales and driving revenue or you're not.
The David Johnson Show has its first sponsor as of this month, correct?
Yeah. How'd you know about that? Did I tell you that?
I pay attention, David. I stalk you. No, I don't stalk you. I do pay attention. You did mention it. Yes. Oh. Yeah. And I don't know if you mentioned it to me specifically or if you posted about it.
Oh. Or Keith probably told you.
No, Keith didn't tell me. It either came from you or I read it in a post.
Oh, okay.
We do have a couple comments, so I'm going to click on them. Speaking of Keith, he was one of the first persons to comment.
Oh.
He said he wanted to say moo.
Hey, Keith, moo. I love Keith. We would not be here, by the way. The David Johnson Show wouldn't be here if it weren't for Keith.
So,
just FYI. We'll talk about that later.
Fortis Life Insurance.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
What is that? What is that about?
Ooh, I was not prepared to have this conversation. But in addition to the David Johnson Show, we are launching the first ever digital life insurance sign up for the veteran community. About 200,000 people get out of the military every year. They leave behind a life insurance policy that the government pays for, the military pays for. It's called SGLI, if I'm not mistaken. And the trends of life insurance the past 5 years, it's going online. This Amazon.com, Expedia.com purchasing experience. So we have the first ever online digital life insurance sign up platform for the veteran community. We're doing a hard launch here in about 60 days.
Wow. So you've got your hands in a lot of different buckets right now.
7 income streams is the goal by age 45.
And how old are you right now?
39.
Oh, I want to be 39. I want to be 39. That
What a
would
great
be so
age.
great. Oh, yeah, I loved my 30s, my mid 30s. Oh, anyways, so I digress. That's your goal. Are you investing as well?
Oh, monthly. You have to. Yeah.
So are you investing in just the traditional stock market, or are you doing anything in crypto?
I do have crypto. I've been on a very small, thanks to my good friend from first grade, Ryan Johnson. I have been on, and I will fully admit I did miss the boat on this because I should have got into it years ago, but I didn't. Shame on me. Whatever. I'm on a very small auto draft out of my personal checking account into Coinbase every month, and it just buys Bitcoin at whatever the price is. I don't even look. I made the commitment to do it, and then I'll wake up one day here in a year or two and look at it and see how we're doing.
And you're buying through Coinbase?
Correct. I said
what about, are you using Coinbase Pro or just the traditional Coinbase?
Oh, hell, I don't know. Whatever it is.
Well, if you're able to do, I think you're probably on Coinbase Pro. I do believe. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think because Coinbase has higher fees and I don't think they allow you, because I'm starting to go down the rabbit hole, David.
Of crypto?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of this book right here, this is not a paid promotion, by the way. I get nothing. The Bitcoin Standard.
Yeah.
I did it on the Audible, the audio version.
Okay.
But chapter, if you have not heard this book, you need to listen to chapter. Well, it goes into the history of money, the monetary standard. We were on the gold standard. Now we're on the fiat standard. If you understand, currency and then, how governments and people can manipulate that, who's really backing it, so on and so forth. And then it goes into the digital currency, the security of it, anyways, I can't even begin to sound intelligent on the book. So, but to answer your question, yeah, I'm just on a small auto draft every month and we'll see what happens.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see what it goes to. Alex commented, he said, do you have any anxiety about leaving the military? My brother has been in the UK military since he was 18. He's 45 now and has been wondering about life after the military for at least 15 years.
Yes. So did I have anxiety? I wouldn't call it anxiety. I would say I see this a lot. You got to find your what's next, and it's hard. I will also say, after talking to military people the past year on a regular basis, I have seen that people that have stayed in longer, I'm not going to say they have a harder time transitioning, but I only did 6 years, right? I mean, I got out young, and I had the ability to start young at creating the next chapter in my life. But if you do 20, and let's just say you get out when you're 40, maybe now you have kids, a family, you're just further along in life, and it might be harder for some people to kind of create their what's next. We did a huge podcast on this season 1. John Fussell, amazing man, Navy SEAL, just an incredible human, and he made the decision when he got out to go into a whole different path. Nothing related to government or military or contracting or defense or anything like that. And that was his decision. And yeah, it even took him, very educated, master's, maybe even a PhD, I don't know, but it took him years to find his what's next.
So how did podcasting become part of your what's next?
Well, it didn't. It started last year as just a hobby. Like, let's have some fun. And I don't know what else to say, but it was just like, hey, let's just have a little bit of fun and let's do this podcast. And we filmed 10 episodes that, made up season 1 in 48 hours from a Sunday night at 7:30. It was Keith. It was season 1, episode 1, to a Tuesday night at 7:30. We filmed 10 1-hour long episodes. Purely, let's just have some fun.
And sorry for jumping in real quick,
yeah.
but do you, because Keith's podcast was about I say it wrong. Hoorah.
Yeah, something like
how
that.
do I say it? Do you know how to say
the
it?
cost of being
hua. The cost of being hua. Did you build that? So do you do speaking points with your guests before? Do you decide a topic and be like, we're going to stick to this topic and go down there? Or
so this is the only thing I really do. So each guest, there's usually a theme of the show. So I do start with like a theme. Each guest I spend at least about an hour with prior, whether it's a week prior, 2 weeks prior, whatever have you, and I just hear their story. Because a lot of these guests I've never met before. I don't know them, anything like that. So it's very, very hard to go on a show without knowing anything about anything. Because then you just have to ask all these like discovery questions. But so if I at least know the guest, know the theme, then I at least have a landscape in my head. There are no talking points. There's no script. I've had numerous guests when they walk into the studio said, well, where's the teleprompter? Where's the talking points? Where's the, you write everything out on. I'm like, it doesn't go like that. We just talk. And it's been, sometimes it's difficult because, we filmed 10 or 11 episodes in 48 hours. That's not easy. So it's like, okay, let's go. Episode 1, okay, take a 30, 40-minute break. Okay, episode 2, take a 30, 40-minute break. Episode 3, okay, take an hour and a half break. Okay, let's go again. Episode 4 or 5, wake up the next morning, do it again. So we're changing it up next season. We start filming again in about 2 weeks. We're changing it up. We're doing 3 episodes a month for the next 5 months. So we're not filming all in one fell swoop. I had to do that for season 1 and 2 because of budget, finances, logistics, everything like that, because I rent out a studio. And I couldn't rent out the studio like a Monday, come back in 2 weeks later, rent it out again, come back 2 weeks later, rent it out again. It didn't make sense. But we switched all that up going forward. So.
Are you flying your guests to see you when they're going to do your interviews? Because you do everything pre-recorded.
Yeah, we do it pre-recorded. Yes is the answer. We give the guests a per diem, and we have a block room rate at a hotel here. Hopefully they're going to sponsor it and do it for free. I'm going down that path. We'll see what they say. I mean, they can tell you no, but whatever. But yeah, I do give a per diem for the guests, pay for their hotel, and yeah.
And so you had to get some people to invest in the podcast in the beginning in order to make it happen, right?
Myself and a very few others. The 80 to 85% of the upfront capital is mine, and very close friends and family have put in some money.
That's wonderful. I really love that you've got that network of support. So my podcast, as you know, is different than yours. I don't have a production. I mean, really, sometimes I feel silly calling it a podcast because, like I'm not on Spotify, it literally is, I'm using Facebook Live to talk to people.
Right.
But
that's
great. My beginning because I don't have the money to fly people to meet with me.
And you know what? It's easy. You could take this, you could strip out the audio, you could put it up on your app. If you create an account with Apple Podcasts, it's free. I mean, there's a lot of things, but this is back to, as I jump around now, a lot of people, and I was a guest on Soldier for Life podcast on Monday. I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, whatever, of this week. It's the official Army podcast. Olivia Nunn is the host. She did an amazing job. And this topic came up because the topic of the podcast was actually podcasting. And I tell people just, have a purpose or at least a goal in mind. Is this just pure fun and you don't care what comes of it? Great. Do you actually want to attempt to turn this into a business? And that's a goal of yours? Great. So just kind of have, but what you do, I love it. It's amazing. And it's great content.
I love it as well. I mean, for me, I'm at this point where part of the reason why I'm trying to figure out the best way to make what I want professionally happen for myself. Because you know that I have my first book. My first book is officially written. Now I'm trying to build the book business. which I'm learning is a full-time gig.
Yeah,
And, and you have to have the money to be able to pay for, boosting your posts and social media marketing and all of those pieces. And then trying to navigate keeping a Smile Like Yours photography going, the marketing side, the sales side, and all of these businesses just by myself.
So hard. So
and then
hard.
with the pot, so then there's like, okay, well, maybe I'll get like a job for a minute so that it's really structured at certain hours and I make a certain amount of money and I have my, you know what I mean? So that it gives me, I haven't really figured out the cash flow problem, because when I put my effort into building the book business, then I don't put my effort into my photography business, which needs me to keep going because I don't have anybody else.
I remember we've had this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm still in that. And so, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I can get a disposable job for a minute. Just, you know what I mean? Because the my photography is very time consuming, especially on the editing side. For me to get my pictures to look the way that they look, I'm typically 20 to 30 minutes per image. So,
oh, wow.
It's a lot of work. I mean, people,
Yeah. No, I have a million questions on that. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. I wish I had some, silver lining or solid piece of advice to give you, but it's tough.
I could start one of those an only girls page, and then only fans page, and like it could be for the middle-aged people with saggy parts. There's a whole fetish group for it.
Yeah,
and then people will just start throwing money at me so that they can see all of my saggy parts.
Yeah, people make a lot of money doing that stuff, huh?
That's my point. So that's the brilliant part about this age and time that we're in, is that there's a lot of different ways to make money as an entrepreneur. I don't have to get a job. I don't need a job.
That definitely goes back to the age of the internet and every business. You know what Forbes or Entrepreneur magazine, I forget which one, said some of the top 4 or 5 emerging industries are going to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Tell me.
I just read the article. Wearables for pets. Like we have Apple Watch and stuff. Wearables for pets. Number 2 was very specific products for the gender neutral category.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, hey, things evolve. Like 10 years ago, you should have said, hey, would OnlyFans be a thing? Like, who knows? That's what I'm saying. Things evolve.
Indeed, they do evolve.
Look at podcasting. Where was podcasting 10 years ago?
So when you're having a baby, right? If you don't know.
I don't know. I've never had one.
I've
had.
But you have a child, you have a son.
I think about like having a baby.
Did you and your were you married when you had your son?
I was.
So did you and your wife have a baby shower?
She had a baby shower, and then my boys took me out.
Okay. And did you guys know you were going to have a boy?
I think we did. Yeah, we did. Oh, yes, we already have the name picked out.
So you did the blue thing, right? Versus pink. Or did you go with green and yellow?
Maybe they did that at their baby deal, but that was like a female. That was like the girls thing, so I wasn't involved in that.
See, that's the thing I'm wondering, because it used to be that green and yellow used to be gender.
Is that like the gender reveal party?
Well, that's a new thing. They didn't have gender reveals back when I was pregnant.
I never did that.
I was pregnant with my daughter when September 11th happened.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was like 6 months pregnant, like belly out to there, and I had plans. I had plans to go
like on September 11th.
No, I wasn't due on that day. September 11th happened while I was still very pregnant, and I remember I had plans. She was born in January, so October, November, December, January. So I had her 4 months after September 11th. But I remember I had plans to fly to go see a friend of mine in Minneapolis. And then September 11th happened, and I was too afraid to get on an airplane after that happened. Yeah. And so I didn't end up going, and she had paid for my ticket. And then that was the end of our friendship. Because
you didn't, she didn't understand that.
She didn't understand my irrational fear.
Speaking of end of friendship, and we don't got to get into any, political stuff, because I truly stay away from all that on my podcast, but it just seems like in today's environment, there's been a lot of friendships ending and divides and lines, and I'm against you and you're against me, just because the whole everything you can imagine the past 2 years. It's crazy. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I thought about voicing my opinion on some of this stuff on my podcast, and I've just till now I've really decided not to. But there's just so much hatred today.
Do you know what I had the idea of this morning? Because I really love being able to do the podcast the way that I've been doing them. But I am trying to build a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
Barely, but I mean, it is in my plan.
Sure.
And I was like, I need to be creating more content, period. And I like to talk about topics that people don't feel comfortable talking about. I mean, I really like those things. So I had the idea of like taking like a news clip or that I want to talk about and posting it on my Facebook wall and saying, is anybody interested in talking about this particular headline and having a conversation about this new article? It'll be a 15-minute Facebook Live interview with me, and we'll just talk about this one.
That's a great idea. I have one question. Is that your wine again?
No, it's tea.
It's cool. Whatever.
No, mine makes me fat.
Oh.
Alcohol makes me fat. I'm a little, honestly, I'll just tell you what, I tried on 4 dresses before I found one that fits still because I keep gaining weight. So this is not wine.
Yeah, pizza and beer makes me fat.
Yeah.
But to your point about your idea on your YouTube channel, I love it. Are you going to just talk about it, or are you very opinionated about the topic and you're going to voice your opinion? Or is this just like, hey, let's have an open conversation?
An open conversation. I don't really feel so. I'm not necessarily agreeable per se. I'm rather cantankerous, but I think that
nobody knows what that means. Is that a word?
Yeah, cantankerous. It's usually used to describe old people that are crotchety.
Is it an adjective?
It is.
You see how I knew you see how I did that?
Yeah, I do. I see that, and so I don't know. As far as having opinions are very dangerous things these days.
Yes, and that's my point. Everybody has one, and if you don't agree with me or I don't agree with you, it's creating this hatred. And also, people have an opinion, but if you're talking about a specific issue, like, is that backed up with any facts, or is that just your view of the world? Which, if that's just your view of the world, then just say it. Like, this is just my opinion and how I feel. It's backed up by nothing.
I just recently started listening to Ben Shapiro.
Yeah,
I stumbled upon him because I really like Candace Owens. I really love the things that she has to say. And so then I was like, so it made me click on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that I can say about me is when you get to talking to either Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro, they are the type of arguers. What's the word for arguers? Debaters. They're the kind of people that hold facts in their head and they can just regurgitate them. Like, I have a lot of fluff in my brain, which doesn't mean that I'm not intelligent. It means that my brain saves space for me to create things. That's the only way I can say.
Yes, but I will say their productions are very professional. That is not in their grandma's basement. They're very professionally produced, planned, scripted. Not necessarily scripted in the sense that they're reading, but there's a lot of prep that goes into each one of their episodes. I've seen them both.
Which makes them sound way more intelligent than me trying to talk about a subject on the fly.
But that's probably also like Ben Shapiro as an example. I mean, he has a team. I'm assuming. I've never talked to him or researched it. Or like Joe Rogan. I've researched his stuff out of pure curiosity. You know, the way he started with his friend Brian or Kevin, I forget the name, was a video editor. He had to end up getting another editor. Those are full. Well, even my podcast, there are 2 or 3 people that have their hand into producing each podcast. From video, sound, editing. It's a full-on production, and I'm on the bottom of the totem pole, if you will. So when you talk about these guys, there's a whole team there. So that's a full-on deal.
Do you think that my format is dangerous?
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean like that, I'm going to use I'm looking for a job maybe in the corporate world right now. In my secret wealth building group, I posted that little bit about not getting the job, right?
The salesman piece?
The salesman piece.
Yeah, I read it.
And do you think that if my writing and the way that I choose to talk about things made it out like in the corporate world, do you think that I would get fired or lose sponsorship based on the way that I talk about things?
Well, a lot of questions. I think I heard at least two in there, but let me ask this first question. Was that your, I forget verbatim right now, but I did read it. Was that your actual response? Because you told me the response to the interview question they asked you in that paper. Was that your actual?
So here's the thing about it. As of yesterday, so I didn't get the job in sales, right? But the sales manager, who's friends with my boyfriend, and the recruiter who I interviewed with, they both said, hey, looking at your resume, we really think you'd be great on our social media team. And they were really nice and really professional.
Right.
And then I wrote that piece. I wrote the salesman and expressed the way that I was thinking and feeling. And I had the bright idea that I was going to go ahead and send the social media marketing position. I was going to send the salesman piece as my cover letter and then give them my resume. And I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Well, it's brilliant in the sense that it's insanely creative. I love your writing. It's very creative. If your direct question is, if you got hired somewhere and produced that type of content, is your employer going to get pissed off because you're not representing? So I don't know. I mean, you see people on Facebook put all kinds of shit, and sometimes even their headline says this is not a representation of my employer or something. And I've seen that. So I don't know. I guess it depends on what the job is. Are you speaking out against? And here's another point. It's like about the hatred in the world that we were just talking about. I've seen stuff the past year where it's like people voicing their own opinions, maybe politically. I'm for this candidate. I'm against this candidate. And then they get fired from their job because maybe somebody, so yeah, who the hell? It's just, it's crazy. I don't know how to directly answer that, but it's definitely a hot topic nowadays. But your stuff's funny. It's funny. It's true. It's creative. It's not offensive. I've never been offended by any of your writings that I've, consumed. It's great.
Well, so I read it to my boyfriend and I told him, I said, I'm going to send this in as my cover letter. And he looked at me, he said, babe, you really don't want this job, do you? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you really send potential. He said, corporate people are typically more stuffy. He said, you have to know your audience. Do you think that somebody that's on the recruiting side is going to read this and think that you're, a sane person?
Yeah, I can see that.
And so I was like, okay, so fine. So then I wrote up a different cover letter and decided to keep that, keep that as something separate. But I want to be creative like that. Do you understand? I don't want to be creative so the company I'm applying for is a cyber security company. And if I look at all of their social media posts, which I have, because, it's social media and I'm interested in what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
I researched it and it's all very, very dry. I mean, it really is who wants to follow that? Certainly not me. You need some spice, right?
Yeah. But who's their customer? Are they a direct
small businesses?
Yeah. Well, two things. One, I've never had a corporate job. I've never even written a resume. Number two, maybe get the job and then be a little bit spicy.
I was thinking about getting the job and then writing a book about going into the corporate world. Cause I mean, that's what I want to do is write. So, and have my own, and then, but the book comes out and they hate it, then they can fire me. And then I have the cash flow from that time with them and a new book.
And then what's going to happen to the photography business?
Well, so here's the thing. Most of my photography business truly are clients that come to me every year, so the majority of my client base are consistent people that just come because I don't do any marketing.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah.
Are you burned out with the photography business?
I don't want to.
Do you have any desire to grow it?
If everybody else is doing all the different pieces of it, if I'm just the person taking pictures and running the business, then cool. But I don't want to spend my time behind my computer editing pictures anymore. The math side, the money side, how you're really good about the analytical data and what needs to happen. I need that in my life because I'm not good at it. So I've been able to identify the parts that make me not the greatest business owner, but I think that could be remedied.
Well, forget the financial side. Do you even know of anybody that has the skill set you need that you trust?
No,
But could
No,
you find them?
but yeah, so I could outsource, and there's companies online that will do your editing for you. Their price point is really, really high. Most of these people, like it would be cheaper for me. It would be more cost effective for me to bring somebody in that has the talent, that wants to get started in the industry, and then train them, which is time consuming. And so I haven't been willing to invest the time. In the 16 years that I've been trying to do this, or doing this business, every time I've tried to bring in somebody on the editing Photoshop side of things, it hasn't worked out. But I've also,
from a quality of work standpoint, or what?
So it's a matter of having the money to be able to pay the right professional. So that's why I said those numbers.
Is your business steady in cash flow, or is it like I'll get real busy and then nothing for a month?
So my business typically first quarter, January, February, March, is typically dead. There have been years that are a little bit of an exception. And I think most businesses are typically slower the first quarter. My busy season is usually June until Christmas. July this month was like almost dead air, which is unusual compared to last year. August has been busy, so you know what I mean?
Got it. Yeah.
I've had so many financial hits. Like last year, all of my photography equipment was stolen and I had to get a loan. So $14,000 worth of equipment. My business insurance had lapsed. You know what I mean? So with the COVID shutdowns, I've had enough financial hits that, like, on the cash flow side of things, I'm like, and I'm just going farther and farther in debt as I'm trying to build this. So
right. Well, in essence, you've and not that it's bad, but you've created a job for yourself.
Oh yeah, and I work my business like a job, but right. I like to read. You like to read, right? Mm-hmm. So I've read enough business books to understand that I am not going about my business the right way, that I need to adapt and make changes as a business owner and start being the business owner instead of the person running all the jobs. I'm basically working my small business like it's a job instead of running it like a business. And I know that.
Correct. Yeah.
But I also don't have the systems or the money in place to build a small team at this point. You know, my daughter was working with me, and then she's going to University of Washington, a Foster School of Business. So in the fall, and she's supposed to go to school on campus. So we're almost out of time, but I have to finish this because we started talking briefly about vaccines. So she's supposed see how I circled back around and what I think about it. This is what I can tell you. So last year, my daughter worked with me for my business, and we made a lot of money in a short amount of time, and it was amazing. It was like, this is the best life ever. I want to build a photography business with my daughter. But she's going to school to finish her bachelor's through UW, and she made it into this prestigious program, right? So the thought being is, don't worry about working for me. You go finish, focus on that. We'll come back to the photography business. Well, what's happened with the vaccine and all of the pressure, that they've now told her that she has to get the vaccine or she can't come back to school, period. There's no exemption. And so now she's like, okay, she really doesn't want the vaccine. She's already had COVID. She was just fine through COVID. She doesn't want to put that into her body, period. And she's like adamant, I don't want to do this. And so now she's like, maybe I don't even need school. I'll just be an entrepreneur. Do I even need to go to college? And I'm like, well, at least finish. You you made it. You've got this. It's a big prestigious school. La, 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 la.
Yeah, a lot of emotion and decisions packed into there. I mean, it's not always the vaccine stuff. I respect everybody's beliefs. You want to get it? God bless you. If you don't, God bless you too. I got my own thoughts, but hey, whatever people want to do. I did have this conversation with my friends the other day about how it's going to be hard not to have it if people start, like the school. I think San Francisco was one of the first cities that said if you're not vaccinated, you can't do certain indoor activities. So it's definitely a game changer. So vaccine, hey, her decision, support her. Regarding being an entrepreneur, it could be a great path. It's hard. From everything. Does she have money to start out? What's she going to do? It could definitely be a great path, but also a very difficult path. And
for me, as somebody that's always taken that entrepreneur path, I kind of wanted her to take the college path because I was curious to see if she'd have better results than I've had in my professional career.
Yeah, I've noticed, some of the best entrepreneurs I've had, I've said this before, a guy by the name of Nate Wagner. I mean, anyways, that's a whole other conversation. If college is a prerequisite for being an entrepreneur, I got the most cheesy college degree there was. The only reason I went to college is because the Army paid for it.
Yeah.
And then I had a scholarship, and I actually got paid to go to college because I had extra cash from the Army and the other scholarships. So I was like, I had a motorcycle at the time. I'm fresh out of the Army. I think I'm cool. Life is good. I'm living in some studio apartment. College was a joke in my opinion. I'm not saying it's a joke for everybody. Nothing, zero, anything I learned in college am I using, applying, or do I even remember today? But that's just me. And again, I'm not saying that's the path for everybody. That's just my take on things.
I absolutely love your take on things, because I don't believe you need a college degree to be successful in business, period. I don't think it's necessary. I think that, the people that are making the most money out of colleges are colleges. College is a business, period. College is a business. And one of the questions I've been asking her as she's been taking her college courses, because many of them have been Zoom and she's been here, is how would you apply that to our business model? What are you learning that we could specifically use to help A Smile Like Yours Photography, or Rubber Rooster Media, which, you've got your media company and I've talked about mine. How would we use the things that you're learning in real life business? Is it applicable? And so far the answer's been, I'm really not learning anything that could really help me.
The skill set of entrepreneurship can be learned. There is a skill set. I said skill ship, I think, whatever. The skill set of being an entrepreneur can be learned, but you have to have the mentality and the personality for it.
What do you think that mentality and personality looks like?
A lot of it is just kind of like, I think, a personality from a risk tolerance standpoint and your desire. I mean, do you really want this? Like, somebody wants to be a doctor. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world. Clearly you have to have an intelligence, but you have to have the desire to go to 8 years of schooling and plus this and that and whatever it is. I don't know, but that's a desire. You have to have a desire to be in entrepreneurship, a desire to dive in and do it and get it done and constantly learn and constantly change and just, make it happen and learn along the way.
Do you think that entrepreneurship is lonely?
Yeah, you can't. Yes. There are times, yes, the buck stops with you. Like I said, we defined entrepreneurship an hour ago. It is you rely on yourself or a small team of people maybe that you put together to do what you got to do. And nobody's going to put as much time, energy, and effort into your venture. I've seen this a million times. Nobody's going to put as much time, energy, and effort into your venture as you. And, when stuff has to get done, you're either going to, back to this black and white thing we were talking about, you're kind of either going to get it done or you're not. And it's very lonely. Not a lot of people can relate to you. Not a lot of people understand, especially if you have like a vision or a dream. Like I have a true vision for the David Johnson show and where it could go. People don't get it. Most people don't. And they'll ask you, how's it going? Maybe, sometimes. Hey, David, how's the show? It's good. Okay, so what are you going to do tomorrow? And it's not
they don't really care. They just ask.
Maybe they care from a surface level, but at the end of the day, it's not their venture. They got their own problems in life. They got their own electric bill and shit due tomorrow, and their own job that they probably hate that they got to show up for at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So very few people, and I wrote a blog on this. If you check out our blog, davidjohnsonshow.com, under blog, very few people will truly care about your venture. And that's not being mean. That's human nature, and everybody's got their own thing going on.
I think that's honest and absolutely accurate. It's the same thing about it was a really big goal for me to write my first book and get it published. And then the question that people ask me is, why do we care about your book? Why should we read it? Right. And then I literally look at them. I'm like, well, shit, I don't know. Like, why should you care about my book? And then that becomes, okay, well, you better figure out the answer to that question. So when you're having that conversation, you've got your elevator pitch. Well, you should care about my book because you're going to be able to make $10 million with a rubber chicken if you read it.
Right.
Is that true?
But yeah,
quite possibly.
And then 30 seconds after they talk to you, guess what? Their kids are crying in the background. They have to go show up to their job. They miss their deadline. They got to this. They got to that. They're worried about their promotion at work. They're worried about starting their own venture. And everything Amber and David Johnson is now, third page sports section of the newspaper, meaning it's 10 pages down. And that's life.
Would you ever go get a job again?
I haven't had a job since 2007. I would never go get a job.
Yeah.
I'll buy Gatorade at Costco and go sell it at the flea market when it's 130,000 degrees in Phoenix before I go get a job.
That's how I feel about it as well. Although I would get a job if I could write a book about getting the job. You know what I mean? Just so that I would.
But again, I'm not bashing on getting a job.
Oh, me either.
It's just not for me. I don't want people to think that, oh, that sucks, blah, blah, blah. No, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm 40. Okay, I'm going to be 40 next. Who the hell's going to hire me? Well, number one, I didn't mean it like that. I have no job experience. I didn't mean an age thing. That's not what I meant. That came out wrong. Let's rewind and undo that. But the point is, David, go get a job tomorrow. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I have now, thankfully, business is good, and I will never have to think about going to getting a job. If I lose my company, it's like World War III, and there's a lot more problems if I lost all my clients. So that'd be a very.
I think you would figure it out though.
Yeah, I have a 7 in my core business. I have a 6 going on 7 or 7 going on 8 track record. So, and then it's so am I secure? Look at all these layoffs COVID did last year. Do you know how many people had jobs and got laid off? So how secure is your job?
Yeah.
I got a business that has a 7-year track record and clients. How secure is my business? I'll bet me and my ability and my clients against somebody's job for security, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So.
Oh boy. So you know what? We're 8 minutes over, and I did promise that I would keep us on track today.
All right.
I'm absolutely grateful for your time today, and I'm looking forward to following your next season of David Johnson Show. When does that air?
We start filming in 2 weeks.
Okay. And I will make sure that I post the links to. You're on your second. This is your season 3, right?
Correct.
Oh, so people can find the first 2 seasons on your website?
Website, thedavidjohnsonshow.com, YouTube, The David Johnson Show, or anywhere you get your podcasts at The David Johnson Show.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. I'm grateful for you. I'm shutting this bad boy down.